August 28th has been a huge day for Genshin Impact news. Everything from new character and enemy reveals, to further release details and rewards. There's a lot to talk about in today's edition of the Genshin Impact Intelligence Report, so let's get it underway. First, it was confirmed today that release for the PS4 will in fact be on September 28, 2020, to coincide with the global release on the mobile and PC platforms. Crossplay will still be featured on the PS4, however cross-save will not, meaning that you will be able to play on the PS4, but you will not be able to use the same account on your PC or mobile device. We don't know the reasoning behind it, but leading speculation suggests that Sony isn't generally well known for allowing cross-save features to other platforms, so it's likely this was out of MiHoYo's hands. The good news for PS4 users, however, as a silver lining, is that they already have the option to pre-register for the PS4, and will in turn be rewarded with the Sword and Wings of Desolation. These items will be unique to the PS4 pre-registration option, so if you want these items, you will be forced to use the PS4 as your platform of choice. PC and mobile users will be glad to know that we are still projected to receive our own special glider skins for pre-registering, currently known as the Wings of Waiting. Continuing with the theme of wings, during the main announcement's display of the new gliders, you can also see that they used a new type of combat mechanic, a downstrike, to reach the ground more quickly from gliding. This is a welcome addition to the combat in Genshin Impact, and should be useful not just for travel purposes, but should prove useful in combat as well. On to the next topic. The Genshin Impact website pre-registration contest is also still ongoing, with the numbers continuing to press on towards the 3 million registrations goal. As of the time of writing this, the totals are approaching 2 million. With 1 million registrations left until the final goal is reached, we've got a little ways to go yet, but we do have a month left, so there's plenty of time. If you or anybody you know has not yet pre-registered, please do so. These final rewards will be the ones that have the most impact on your long-term play, as they will give out Acquaint Fates, which you will use to roll for new characters and weapons. Speaking of new characters, this is probably the part you came here excited for. 4 new characters were unveiled today, including brief teasers of their gameplay. I'm going to break down each of these one at a time, so let's get into it. Starting with Qiqi. She's now been added to the website's official character page under Liyue. Her description reads, an apprentice and herb gatherer at Boo Boo Pharmacy, blessed by the Adepti with a body that cannot die. This petite zombie cannot do anything without first giving herself orders to do it. Qiqi's memory is like a sieve. Out of necessity, she always carries around a notebook, in which she writes anything important that she is sure to forget later. But on her worst days, she even forgets to look at her notebook. Moving on to her combat skills. Her element is confirmed to be Cryo, and she uses a single-handed sword as her weapon of choice. Her normal attack uses quick strikes with her sword to deal damage to enemies. Qiqi's E-skill, or elemental attack, uses what appears to be a small cryo spirit, which will circle Qiqi or any character you swap to, providing cryo damage and effects periodically. In addition to this, for a time while the cryo spirit is active, normal attacks from Qiqi will provide healing to herself and all party members. Her Q, or elemental burst, releases a field of ice, freezing nearby enemies if they are wet, and providing a large amount of healing for a time to any chosen character when they deal damage to enemies affected by this elemental burst. The next character added to the characters page in Liyue is Keqing. Her description reads as follows. The Yuheng of the Liyue Qixing. Keqing has much to say about Rex Lapis' unilateral approach to policy making in Liyue, but in truth, gods admire skeptics such as her quite a lot. She firmly believes that humanity's future should be determined by humans themselves, and that they can even do better than the Archons and Adepti have done for them. In order to prove this, she works harder than anyone else. Moving on to her combat abilities. Her element is Electro, and her weapon type is also a single-handed sword. Her normal attacks are conducted quickly and nimbly as she moves around the area gracefully. Keqing's E ability is able to be held or tapped. Depending on how you've chosen to use it, you will get a slightly different functionality. For instance, if you double tap the skill, you will shoot a mark at the targeted enemy and then be teleported to it, charging her sword with the power of Electro and dealing damage. All normal attacks afterwards, for a time, will continue to retain this charge, dealing additional Electro elemental damage. If you hold the skill, you may choose to aim where the mark will go, allowing you to use it more surgically. You will still teleport to the mark wherever it is placed. If you choose not to teleport to the mark, however, You can use a charge strike to detonate that mark, causing AoE electro damage, but not charging her sword with the electro power. Additionally, the aimed component of this skill will allow you to place the mark in the air, allowing you to gain altitude for smash attacks, or possibly also as a travel utility. Her elemental burst ability is a fast multi-hit strike, in which she quickly passes through her target multiple times whilst charged with electro power, hitting all enemies nearby. Next we'll move on to the new characters from Mondstadt, the first of which was already unveiled to us about a month ago. However, now we have details for how Sucrose actually performs in combat, so I will break that down now. First, her normal attacks strike the target with animo power, pushing them back slightly whilst dealing damage. If charged, while much shorter in range, it will push smaller targets off their feet a good distance. Her main elemental skill creates a small alchemical butterfly. During its animation, it will deal animo damage, pulling the targets close to the center, and if they are affected by other elements, it will deal additional swirl damage. Sucrose's elemental burst summons forth a much larger elemental butterfly. For multiple strikes, it remains in place and deals damage to all nearby enemies. Like her basic elemental skills, this will also add additional swirl damage, and even absorbing nearby elements to produce larger reactions for even more additional damage. Last, but certainly not least, we've reached the final new character of today's announcement, Mona. Her elemental type is Hydro, and her weapon is the Spellbook, or Catalyst. Also hailing from Mondstadt, Mona's description reads as follows: a mysterious young astrologer who proclaims herself to be astrologist Mona Magistus, and who possesses abilities to match that title. Erudite, but prideful. Though she is often strapped for cash, she lives a life of thrift. She is resolved to never use astrology for profit. It is this very resolution that has caused her to constantly fret about money. Moving on to her combat abilities. Starting with her normal attacks, like all mages in Teyvat, are constantly charged with their respective element. In this case, Hydro, her attacks constantly making her enemies wet. She deals damage with quick magical attacks, and the attacks can be charged for a much greater impact. Mona's elemental skill leaves behind a lure, which deals damage to all enemies nearby it, and drawing their attention so you can reposition yourself behind them to deal greater damage. At the skill's end, it explodes, dealing greater damage than in the previous strikes. Her elemental burst uses Mona's astrological control over the constellations to hold smaller enemies in place, and all enemies caught within it will be left with an astrological mark. The next attack against this target will deal substantially increased damage. If a charged attack is used following it, it will probably mean lights out for that enemy. The roster of new characters revealed today really helped to add some needed depth to the roster, providing the first representatives of their respective weapon types to their elements, with the exception of Mona, who is now the second mage of the Hydro element. However, Mona seems poised to be the chosen damage dealer of the Hydro mages, whereas the previous Hydro mage, Barbara, is primarily a healer. As her heals scale from her HP, if you choose to build her as a DPS, her healing kit's effectiveness will be substantially lessened. Today's news also included the unveiling of several new enemy types: the Cryo Gunner Legionnaire, the Pyro Slinger Bracer, and the Electro Hammer Vanguard, as well as the Whopper Flower in both Cryo and Pyro forms, and the Geovishap Hatchling, as well as what appears to be boss-type enemies, Cryo Regisvine and Oceanid. Of these enemies, Oceanid is of particular interest. She appears to summon waves of water elemental creatures to attack you. I don't suspect Mona will be of much use here, but I'd imagine Keqing will be an excellent asset to your team in this fight. I look forward to seeing more of these enemies once the game launches. Other new game features announced today included a system of achievements, which award you with special cards upon completion to display your chosen character icon and name upon, to help you stand out and make your accomplishments known as a Teyvatan adventurer. Also announced today was a robust photo screenshot mode, where you can change the focus depth of the camera, widen or narrow the lens aperture, make the character look at the screen, and even choose emotes to display for screenshot poses. I can only imagine what I'll be able to use this photo mode to do when creating new lore content for you all. The possibilities seem endless. Next, we'll discuss a few other things that were confirmed today, starting with the timeline for the Chinese open beta, which will begin pre-download phases as of the 13th of September, with the open beta beginning at 10 a.m. on September 15th. Global pre-downloading will begin on September 26th, ahead of the launch 2 days later on the 28th. We did find out today that it is confirmed that Xiangling will still be a free character, unlockable after completing Abyss 4 3-5. Next, the official Genshin Impact Facebook page announced that there will be an event taking place on September 10th, which will reward its participants with a free 4-star weapon upon reaching Adventurer Rank 10, and a free 4-star artifact upon reaching Chapter 4 in the story. Lastly, there was some mention of zones either being new or renewed in the world map, so it is possible that compared to previous betas, that certain areas of Teyvat will be different from what has been shown thus far. That's great news, and for many of us who have lived off the live streams since the very first closed beta, it's good to hear that we'll likely have surprises in store for us yet. As a final note, I hope you all enjoyed the translation I completed this morning for the Mona reveal trailer. If you did, please let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't yet watched it, I will include it in the end card for this video. With that, we've reached the end of all I have to discuss in this installment of GER. I hope you all found it to be useful, and if so, please think about leaving a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching the Genshin Impact Intelligence Report, and as always, may the 7 guide you, travelers.